Welcome to the Better Together podcast, where we look for ways we can work together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. Today, I have with us Todd Brown. He's the leader of Brown Church Development Group, a group that helps churches with their building needs and their planning needs. And so, Mr. Brown, it's so good to have you with us today on the Better Together podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. I'd love to help churches, and this is a great opportunity.
Well, I got to start out. I noticed there's a Nebraska football helmet behind you. How did you end up into this particular field that you're in right now?
That's kind of crazy. I was born and raised in Nebraska, and when I was a little scoot, Nebraska football was king. I mean, it was a machine, cranking out national championships and all that. And so I grew up just wanting to play football in Nebraska. In fact, I went overboard with it. I actually became obsessed with football, and football became the god of my life. And I was very fortunate to be involved in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Had a friend invite me to a meeting, and I got saved, which drastically changed the course of my life, as we all know. And it was just it was in that growing up in a small town. My dad had a construction company. I loved football and I loved construction, and so I just found myself attracted to both of those. And God was gracious to me and gave me the desire of my heart. And I went on to play football and ran track at the University of Nebraska, and spoke on behalf of our Lord all over, the nation. Every opportunity I had, I took up. Nebraska actually went to Orange Bowls then.
Yeah,
and, it was kind of fun, doing the whole Orange Bowl thing and talking to churches. And when I finished up school, I played a little football afterwards. And then when I finished up school, I told my dad, I want to help churches some way. How do we do that? And so I'd made a lot of connections and started talking, and we just started moving our construction company towards the church market locally. Had a couple of denominational leaders that took me under their wing. They were Nebraska fans. And so we got relationships, and I just helped churches across the country. And then we started an architectural firm, and then we started a consulting division. And God has just been so gracious to me and allowing me to do the things that I love, with athletics and with construction. It's just been a blast.
so God used, really, you did the football, but you also got into the family business. And we should say your son follows suit. Isaac, he was also a football player at Liberty University, and now he's working with you as well. And you kind of do something unique, and not just building buildings, but helping churches think about how they can use space, how they can use buildings really to advance the gospel. It sounds like. I wish, Mr. Todd, you talk a little bit about relational friendly building, because I've heard you speak about that and how you try to help churches to think in that respect. It really is a different way of going at building churches, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you want your facility to be relational, there's a number of things that you need to do. I think the biggest thing that I'd like your listeners to know is that most churches in America were built institutional and educational, not relational. And so if you're in an older building that hasn't been built in the last 10 years, you're probably in a very institutional building. And so the building itself is really fighting against that relationship. The culture in our country has changed drastically in the last 40 years. Things like a fellowship hall are usually not very relational. They're more institutional. A narthex is more institutional, not relational. So what we found, and as you know, we've been doing this since the early '80s. We've seen that change. I mean, I built those institutional facilities many years ago. But what we know now is if you want a relational campus, you need to be intentionally planning a relational facility, because chances are your facility right now is not very relational.
So if I'm trying to go in that direction, what are things I need to do? What do I need to design to help my church be more relational?
Well, we actually have a process that we take churches through to make your campus relational. It also incorporates facility growth strategy, meaning what happens if your ministry actually grows. So there's kind of two things. One, making it relational now, but then the other is, what if we actually grow? And we all want to grow, but what
Right.
if we grow? What do we do next? So that's we call that master planning. So if I look at the key elements to having a relationally friendly church, I would say there's five. Number one is intuitive paths of travel, and by this I mean um, when you come on campus and you park wherever you park, parking lot, whatever, you need to be able to shut the door, turn around, look at the facility, and know exactly where you should be, what door to go in. I don't know if you've ever been to a church where they have the primary parking lot and then they don't really even have a door to go into the church.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, that is not friendly at all.
No, no.
So,
So the
so
people get there, they don't know where to go. They're a little bit confused. They may have kids with them. And so you're saying as soon as they pull up, they need to know, okay, that's where I go. And it's
okay,
designed that way.
yeah, yeah, and if you have multiple places to park, you have to have multiple entrances. Now, when we talk about an intuitive path, we talk about something that's very natural and flows, and so that intuitive path, that's number one. And number two is you need to have a relational hub of ministry. Now, a lot of the older churches has a narthex. That's just a pass through space, maybe a little coat closet. But a
Mm.
relational hub needs to give you a clear path to your worship, to your relationship, and maybe a cup of coffee and a place to sit down and somewhere I can actually meet. I gotta be able to find the restrooms from there, and then I gotta drop off my kids. So a relational hub, this changes, and it becomes a bit of a challenge. And I don't know if you've ever gone to a church where you shut the door, you get out, you shut the door, and you look, and you have a doorway that you go into, and everything you need is kind of right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
what we're looking for, a
Okay.
relational hub. This becomes a challenge with an older facility, but we can figure that out.
Good.
Um, so we have an intuitive path, then we have a relational hub, and the third thing, if you want it to be relationally friendly, is going to be you need to right size the campus. So right sizing the campus is getting the appropriate balance of the major ministries. You think of it like this: if I have a worship space that'll hold 1,000, but only 2 parking stalls, I'm not going to ever get to 1,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So not only parking and worship, they need to balance, but your kids' spaces need to balance, and your education spaces need to balance. So we call that right size,
Mm-hmm.
and your relational. So worship, relational space, parking, education, all need to balance per session. So that would be number 3.
Okay.
Number 4 would be the appropriate adjacencies. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to a church where you get out of the car, you don't know which door to go into, and so you walk around the building, and then you have what we call a door to nowhere, meaning a front door that's got the street right in front of it, no parking close to it, and you're supposed to know that you got to walk all the way around to get to that door. Then once you get in that door, you don't know where to go from there. And in fact, I'm working with a couple of churches right now that their nursery is in a completely different building than where their worship is.
Yeah.
That's a huge turnoff.
Yeah.
To people. So we got to have the right adjacency. What is next to each other? And then last but not least, you have to have a growth strategy, and that means you have to have proper phases as you go. So, by proper phases, I mean phases that you can actually afford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of times they aren't. We have ideas, but we can't afford those ideas.
Right. You have ideas to expand, but they're not in increments that are achievable.
Mm-hmm. So if I can start from the beginning, we can really lay this out. We can develop a facility that's relationally that prompts people, and it can be intuitive. So many of our listeners are in situations where the nursery is in another building and aren't at a spot where they can really do a full-fledged building program. Are there things that can be done to help them, kind of like as a stopgap between going and designing another facility?
Yes. I think any church can improve their situation. And so we do that all the time for churches. I personally feel that every church should have a facility growth strategy or a master plan. You ought to know where you're headed and how to make your facility as relational as possible. So yeah, we that's maybe moving some walls, maybe moving some ministries, trying to grab what we'd call low-hanging fruit, carpet and paint as much as possible, without doing drastic changes.
So you're looking at what you've got, and can I take out a wall here, or could I move the nursery here, and trying to design it to at least improve the situation.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets to, a lot of our listeners are in smaller churches around 100 people or so. It kind of gets to your group and what they might be able to do to help out some of these smaller churches, or some churches that would really be kind of, I don't want to say stuck, but they may feel like they're stuck in some of these difficult situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a number of things that we offer. We do ministry planning, which is strategic ministry planning. We have a process we call a GPS, which assesses where the church is at, where they want to go, and then how to get there. It's kind of like the play on words with a phone. Your phone figures out where you're at, and then you just tell your phone where you're going to go. So you got to know where you're at and where you're going to go, and then we would develop a map of how to get there. So that's a ministry master plan. We do those, but we also do facility growth strategies, which is also a master plan.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about this is we can actually do these remote. If you have a good set of drawings of your facility, and we can go on Google Earth. I've done these all over the country and never had to actually be on site. So, what I'm saying is that the cost just goes way down for something like that. And it becomes very attainable for a small church. to have us look at their facility, give them some ideas of some low-hanging fruit that they can do, but also how would you expand this facility, and how would you correct the things that are there to make them more friendly to guests, and just have a better guest experience.
That's good. So if they've got that set of plans, they could reach out to you. You're in Nebraska, not a problem. Wherever they be, North Carolina, California, you can help them remotely. And I suppose you've done a lot of these. I'm wondering, what are some of the biggest surprises you've had from some of these master plans?
I think the biggest surprise to me is how people really are not, they're not thinking in terms of a guest. You know, it's one thing for everybody in your church that's currently going to know to take that the nursery is in the basement at the furthest point away. I mean, but a guest, that's a huge thing. Just finding things. Especially there's a lot of churches, a lot of Baptist churches that we work with that have multiple buildings, and they'll spread things out. So I think my biggest surprise is people not seeing ministry, or the struggles that it's going to be for someone to come in who has no idea where anything is, and they just don't make it intuitive. I mean, if you got a front door, that should be the portal to relationship, ministry, to everything that you want them to experience when they go to church. And I think my biggest surprise is just how churches don't really cater to that. They're not thinking of it as the new guest, because everybody knows that, you know, the only bathroom in the place is in the basement in the far corner.
Yeah.
So they don't think about that. But
So
to a guest, that's a big deal.
we would be a lot of those Baptist churches in that situation. So I know many of our listeners are thinking, oh no. And so you're thinking, think like a visitor, but you're also saying, hang in there. You may have multiple buildings. You may have a situation now where your nursery's in a different building, but there's help. You know, we can help you with that, and can hopefully help you without having to go be with you, but can just give you some ideas, maybe moving some walls or thinking more ministry minded is what I think. That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we were challenged a while back to make offerings for the smaller church, because most churches in America are under 200.
Yes.
I mean, they're the small ones, and that's where the bulk of you know, God's people are.
Yes.
And so we tried to plan and set up a system that we can do Zoom just like we're doing right now, and we can bring them world-class planning and architecture. It's it's just a real simple way to get some of that low-hanging fruit, do some things, and I think above anything is start seeing your facility through the eyes of guests.
Yes. That sounds like the number one thing is think about how it feels for a guest. So you're listening and you're thinking, we need to talk to Todd or Isaac Brown. You can reach them. Their website is churchdevelopment.net. So that's churchdevelopment.net, or feel free just to give them a call at 308-338-1616, 308-338-1616. And they have helped. You all have helped so many churches, and we appreciate the good work you're doing. And we're hoping that you're able to help many of our churches, to help us be more inviting, help people get more connected, because really what you're doing, Mr. Brown, is really good work. Thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. I'd love to help any of the churches. And even if they just have a question, it doesn't mean they have to, you know, if they have a question, just bring it. I'll talk to them personally, and help them out in any way we can.
Well, we appreciate you, and we're thankful the Lord shaped you in your unique way, and has used you all really since the 80s to help so many churches. So thank you for what you and your team are doing, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
And we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today on this podcast. Maybe you know folks that would benefit from it. We encourage you to take it and share it. And remember, every little thing we do really does help. It makes a difference. We truly are better when we work together. Thank you for joining us today.